Hi there, welcome back to English as it is. Now today's video will be on step 3 to voice change. Alright, so when we convert a sentence from active to passive or passive to active, we actually follow 4 different steps. Okay, number 1, whenever we get a sentence or whenever we find a sentence, our first step will be to find out or determine whether that sentence is in active or in passive. Alright, that is step number 1. And if you don't know how to do that, then there is a video available on this channel as to how to determine quickly, instantly, whether a given sentence is in active or in passive. Do watch the video. Okay, the link will be provided in the description. Then step number 2 is, that is very, very important, and I think that is the most difficult step in voice change, and it is how to find out the object or objects in a sentence. Okay, and let me tell you that in case of the passive voice, it is not that difficult, but in case of the active voice, determining the object or objects would be very, very difficult and tricky sometimes, because the object or the objects should be found in the predicate segment of the sentence and after the verb. But remember, after the verb, we may have different adverbs, plus we may have different phrases. We may have adverb phrase, adjective phrase, noun phrase, then we can have infinitive, gerund, verbal noun, and even clauses. Okay, so out of all these elements, you see, we have to find out the object or the objects in that sentence. And once we get that object or objects, then we have to bring it towards the very beginning of the sentence as subject. All right, so that will be the topic for my next video. It will be just step 2 to voice change, but today my focus will be on the active voice verb patterns and the passive voice verb patterns. All right, so I'll be explaining the verb patterns on both the sides. You just can compare and contrast them. You can memorize them and understand them for future uses. And I'll be explaining the verb patterns on both the sides, and you'll be getting the examples on the screen somewhere to my left or right. So as you can see that in case of the active voice verb patterns, we have 6 clusters: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, and we have their equivalent passive voice verb patterns. Now here I am mainly focusing on the assertive sentence verb patterns. I am not discussing here the interrogative or the negative voice verb patterns. Now first cluster, this is indefinite, this is continuous, this is perfect, this is perfect continuous, and then the remaining 2 are there. I'll be explaining them after the first 4. Okay, so the first category, it is indefinite. Number 1, present indefinite, then past indefinite and future indefinite. You see, we can have present indefinite tense or the verb patterns in these 3 different ways. Number 1, only main verb in present form. Okay, look at the examples on the screen. Or do or does, then main verb in the present form, and main verb with s or es, especially when the subject is in third person singular number. Okay, so if we get any one of these 3, then the passive voice verb pattern will be am, is, are, then main verb in past participle pattern. All right, so we have to pick am or is or are according to the subject in first person, second person, or third person, and then number. After that, we have the past indefinite. In that case, we'll have either only the main verb in the past form, or we can have did, then the main verb in present form, because did is past, so again the main verb cannot be in past, it should be in present then. So if we get any one of these 2 patterns, the passive pattern will be was or were, then main verb in the past participle or PP form. Again, in future indefinite, shall or will anyone, then main verb in the present form. In that case, the passive voice verb pattern will be shall or will, they will be repeated, then the passive voice sign be, then main verb in the past participle pattern. Then the 3 continuous tenses, first and present continuous, am or is or are, then verb plus ing pattern. This is called the present participle. So we can say am or is or are plus present participle of the verb. So the passive voice will be am, is, are, any one of them. So they are just getting repeated. Then the passive sign being, because it is continuous, so we have to indicate continuity. So being is coming in, then main verb in the past participle form. Similarly, past continuous was or were, then main verb in a plus ing. In passive, was or were, any one of them, then being coming in, then main verb in the past participle pattern. But in case of a future continuous, shall be, will be, main verb plus ing, we see that this is the future continuous active voice verb pattern, but we don't get any equivalent passive voice verb pattern for this one, so I have crossed the possibility. Then the perfect tenses. So first the present perfect tense, have or has, the main verb in the past participle pattern. In that case, the passive voice will be have or has, then the passive sign is coming in the form of been, and then main verb in the past participle pattern. Similarly, past perfect, had plus main verb in the past participle pattern, also had, then been coming in, then main verb in the past participle pattern. Again, future perfect, shall have or will have, any one of them, then main verb in the past participle pattern. And here again, shall have or will have, then been coming in to indicate the passive sense, then verb in the past participle pattern. Then you see the fourth cluster, this is perfect continuous tenses, present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous, future perfect continuous. We see that we don't get any passive voice verb patterns for all these three. So ultimately we get four tenses in active voices for which we don't get any passive voice verb patterns. All four, if we look at them closely, then we'll realize that the auxiliary verb patterns are already in passive sense. Take for example, shall be or will be, already passive because we are getting them in say future indefinite. Then have been or has been, you see that is passive in present perfect. Then had been, passive in past perfect. Then shall have, will have, it is also passive in case of future perfect tense. So they are already in passive idea, that's why we can't get their passive versions further. Then cluster number 5, if we get am, is, are, was, were, have, has, had, any one of these auxiliary verbs, and after that we get the infinitive to plus main verb in the present form, okay, to indicate either obligation or compulsion, then in passive verb pattern we have to take the same auxiliary verb, then the to infinitive to, then the passive sign be, then the main verb will be in past participle pattern. After that, sixth cluster, shall, should, will, would, can, could, may, might, let, must, ought to. After any one of them, we take the main verb in present form. Then we have to take the very same modal auxiliary in terms of all those verbs. After that, we have to take the passive indication be, then main verb in the past participle pattern. So these are the 6 verb patterns, active voice and passive voice, put side by side for you for contrast and comparison. Then at last we get the WH words, who, what, which plus noun. Now you see very often when we frame interrogative sentences, active voice interrogative sentences beginning with these WH words, then in case of the passive conversion, we have to take or convert them like who will be converted into by whom, what will be converted into by what, and which plus noun should be converted into by plus which plus noun. Finally, one more thing, and that is very, very important as to how you can memorize these things rather easily and have this clue in your mind, and that is, in case of the indefinite tenses, we have the derivatives of be in terms of am, is, are, was, were. All right. Then in the continuous tenses, we have to have the present participle form of be in terms of being to indicate continuity. Then in the 3 perfect tenses, we have to have the past participle form of be, that is been, in all 3 to indicate completion of an action. Okay, that is the essence of perfect tenses. Then with regard to the modal auxiliaries or principal auxiliaries, cluster 5 and 6, we have to bring in the be verb itself to indicate the passive idea. Alright friends, that's all about this video today. So this is the single sheet, all the verbs active and passive put side by side for better understanding and better memorizing. Thanks for watching and do serve your motherland.